Recently, I made a video about 5 reading trends I would like to see go away in 2025, and one of those trends is setting reading goals based on total number of books, particularly when we're upping that number year after year. And a lot of you said, whoa, we love reading goals. Well, I do too. So in this video, I'm going to give you 3 ways you can structure your reading goals that don't have to do with the total number of books. And because this is YouTube and I want you to watch until the end, I'm going to save my favorite for number 3. Now, let me preface this with my general approach to goal setting, which is to set my goals as actions that will produce the outcome I want rather than just stating my desired outcome. And my first tip on this list is going to explain what I mean. And that is setting a specific goal of pages per day. If I commit to reading a specific amount of pages every day, I, by default, will end up reading a good amount of books over the course of a year. But the beautiful thing about this goal is it makes the goal seem much more manageable. Rather than having to think about how I'm going to accomplish something over a year's time, I can focus on my actions on a day-to-day basis. Now, the next obvious question is, how many pages per day should you shoot for? And the answer might surprise you. I'm a big fan of the 1 page per day goal. And I know what you're thinking. If I only read 1 page per day, it's going to take me forever to read a book. So hear me out. Sometimes the hardest thing about building a reading habit is literally just cracking open the book and beginning the act of reading. Maybe you just got home from a long day and you're stressed out. You don't think you have the mental energy to focus on reading. You just want to doom scroll social media or throw on the TV and watch some Netflix. If you have a goal of 1 page, it's very easy to convince yourself to pick up that book and read the 1 page. Anybody can read 1 page, right? It's not going to take you that long. But what's going to happen more often than not is once that book is cracked open and you've read the 1 page, you're not going to stop at 1 page. You're going to keep going and read more than that. And on the flip side, if you do decide that, look, I don't have the mental energy of reading more than 1 page, at least you get to pat yourself on the back and say, I hit my goal today, and you help keep yourself in the habit of reading. Now, one of the drawbacks with using a page per day goal is that not all pages are created equally. So if you did decide to set a goal of, let's say, 20 pages per day, 20 pages of a physically large book are going to take you longer than a smaller book, or if the book has small fine print versus large print, or if the actual structure of the book is different in terms of the layout. Maybe one book has a lot of paragraph breaks, or maybe the book is just very dense and difficult to read. Reading 10 pages out of Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace is going to take you a lot longer than reading 10 pages out of something like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So if you're just trying to get into reading and build that reading habit, I would recommend sticking with the 1 page per day goal. And then once you've built that habit, we can move on to something a little bit more advanced, like tip number 2. So tip number 2 is very similar to number 1, except we're switching to a certain amount of time per day rather than pages. And the reason why I love this so much is it really helps me to focus. If I set a goal of, let's say, 10 pages per day, I can sit, read a page, look at my phone, read another page, and I can convince myself that it's all right to have distractions around me because, hey, I'm still working on my goal and there's no time component to it. Where if I tell myself that I'm going to read for 30 minutes, I'm going to read for 30 minutes. I can set a timer on my phone. I can put my phone on the other side of the room and just focus on the act of reading for a specific amount of time. I also don't have to worry about the fact that if the book I'm reading is very challenging and I told myself I was going to read 10 pages for the day, that 10 pages might take me an hour and a half. All right, so we've come to my favorite way to structure reading goals, and these are a little bit more advanced. These are for people who are at that intermediate to advanced reader stage where they've already built the habit of reading. They're going to read books probably every day, no matter what. They don't necessarily need a daily goal to encourage themselves to do that. But this is a lot more fun than just simply upping the total number of books year over year. And that is reading projects. And I'm going to give you 3 different examples of how you can do this. So the first reading project you could do would be to become a completionist of a particular author or a particular literary movement. The first is very straightforward, right? Go read all of John Steinbeck's published works. When it comes to literary movements, that could be something like existentialism, modernism, postmodernism. Obviously, reading everything in one of those movements would be very difficult, so maybe just make a list of some of the more prominent works or authors in that movement and go through all of those works. The second project you could put together for yourself is reading a diverse set of perspectives on a single topic. I'll use myself as an example here. I'm currently reading about the Vietnam War. That one event has so many different angles to approach it from. Of course, you can read it from the American soldier's perspective. You could read it from the South Vietnamese soldier's perspective, the North Vietnamese soldier's perspective, the Vietnamese citizen's perspective. You could read about the politics stateside that led to America getting involved in the war. You could read about the military logistics and strategy involved during the conflict. You could look at the geopolitics after the Vietnam War ended and what happened in those years afterwards. That one single topic has so many different points of view that you could read about, and you could find works that are fiction and nonfiction for any one of those perspectives. So if you really wanted to, you could spend an entire year reading a lot of books about one single thing. And in general, I do think that picking a particular topic and reading fiction and nonfiction works about that topic is a really fun way to structure your reading. Okay, the third reading project of the third way to structure your goals, my personal favorite, is reading a book from every single country in the world. You don't necessarily have to read from every single country. You could do this by continent or region. Now, the way I'm structuring this project is the books I'm reading have to be written by someone who is either born and lived their formative years in that country or has moved there as an adult and is now pretty much integrated into that society. But there are so many ways you could structure this project. You could decide to read works about specific countries. You could decide to read works from authors from those countries. You can read modern works or classic works from those countries. And each one of those, you could go nonfiction or fiction. Someone recently told me that they're trying to read a book from an author from every state in the United States. So breaking your reading down by region is a really fun way to structure your reading. There's a big caveat here, though. I don't recommend putting a time cap on this because there's a couple hundred countries, so you would have to read a few hundred books in a single year if you did put a definitive timestamp on this. Instead, what you could do is you could take one of these reading projects that we've discussed and combine it with one of those daily goals that we talked about at the beginning of the video.
Hey, Editor Tony here. I forgot to mention this. If you are interested in reading a book from every country, I have started to compile a list of books from other countries that I've either already read or books that I want to read once I get around to that country. So if you're interested in that, there is a link down below.
There are so many different fun projects you can do and so many different ways you could structure your reading. So I hope this will give you some ideas on how to get started on that. But let's just get away from continually upping the total number of books as our goal every single year, because there is a point of diminishing returns. Let's not make it about the numbers. Let's make it about the books themselves. If you like this video and you want to support the channel, make sure to subscribe, or you can join us on Patreon where we host our book club. We have a lot of other reading resources and fun things going on. Link is below, and thank you for watching.